As you finish your lunch, we're going to proceed and welcome our guests today and tell you a little bit about why we're all gathered here today. In about 1988 or so, there was a gentleman named Dr. Mark Fravel who was in the department of, what was the department called then, Kay?
I think it was Educational Curriculum and Instruction.
Yes, ECI, Education, Curriculum, and Instruction. And he was an avid member of the Scottish Rite. And you guys are just used to seeing Scottish Rite all around here now. We've got so much that we're indebted to for Scottish Rite, which all started with Mark. And so we want to, Dr. Fravel passed away last fall, and we want to honor his memory, and that's why we're gathered here today. So I am Dr. Stacy Raymer. I'm currently the chair of the Department of Communication Disorders and Special Ed. And we have a few of our faculty here today, and then a number of our current graduate students who are here being trained, part of the legacy that was started through this whole Scottish Rite. So everyone, let me introduce you to our special guests today. Chelsea Cooper is Dr. Fravel's granddaughter. She's from Miami. Debbie Trueblood is Dr. Fravel's daughter, and she's here in Chesapeake. She trained in this building. And Debbie's husband, David Trueblood, is with them today. And then, of course, the special guest is Mrs. Joanne Fravel, who is his spouse. So thank you for coming here today so that we can recognize your husband.
We want to thank you for this grand gesture.
Good.
Mark would be very proud.
So really, the historians in the room who really were here and were so important in getting this all to happen are Dr. Bountress, and you guys don't know perhaps Dr. Bountress and Mrs. Bountress. So you'll get a chance to meet them for a moment. And Dr. Seaver, who's our past audiologist before Dr. Schwartz. And then we have some guests that were colleagues of Dr. Fravel in ECI. So Dr. Denny Wolf and his wife are here today, so thank you for coming. And Dr. Kay Hinton-Johnson is the current chair of the Department of Teaching and Learning, which was the ECI became TLED. And so we're really happy Kay is here today to be part of this. And Carrie, what happened to Carrie? There you are. And then Carrie Clout is from the College of Education as well, is part of our she's our development officer in the college. So Carrie, thanks for coming over. But why don't I turn the meeting over to Nick Bountress to tell us a little bit, and then Joe can add a little bit of personal side. Does that work?
Sure. Yeah. Trying to think about the history, and I started with my own, which was a dangerous thing to do. But I came here in 1975, a long time ago, from, they say, from a galaxy far, far away, very far galaxy, and yet I was thinking I can remember so many of the faculty members that I've worked with over those many years, 38 years of work here. And I remember many of the students, and I remember some of the clients who were in our speech and hearing clinic. And yet, amongst all those people that I knew, there was one person, and I didn't know him as well as Joe, but who stood out, and that was Mark Fravel. And I think of this saying by Montague, English novelist, who said, "Our potential is limitless. We can do anything we want, as long as we could for a moment, avoid taking the credit for everything that we do. And I thought about this with regard to Mark, and I thought two things. One is that limitless contributions that he made, continues to make, and also that lack of selfishness, that unselfishness. And the unselfishness part, to me, is that he wasn't a faculty member in our department. He was not in speech-language pathology. But yet, he made these significant contributions to our program. He did not ask for a bump in pay as a result of it. He didn't ask for a plaque on the wall. He didn't ask for a ceremony. He didn't ask for any of that. All he wanted to do was to be of service. And think about that. He had his own job. He had his own work in another department. And he was helping us in the speech language program get funding. Now, the Scottish Rite had as one of its themes, working with children, helping children with speech and language problems, among others. But then the limitless contributions part that I referred to, it's hard to quantify what he has done. When you think about the fellowships that he was responsible for, and first of all, just a quick overview. What Mark did, and Joe really can elaborate on this, but there was funding to another facility or another agency locally, and they were getting Scottish Rite funds. And Mark started to think about it, and I think he kicked it around with Joe. They kept it sort of quiet for a while before they presented it. Mark was saying, why don't we take advantage of that money? We're in speech and language. The other facility is in speech and language, but they're not getting the visibility. We can give Scottish Rite visibility. And so we thought there's a two-way street there. And so Mark helped funnel Scottish Rite money to this program. You can see some of the things from the prior slide, but everything from $100,000 toward the building of this addition, was $100,000. Yeah. The fellowships for students, fellowships or scholarships for clients who were in the speech and hearing clinic, as well as for materials, and even funding a clinical supervisor at one time. And you think about this in terms of that limitless contribution, goes on and on. For the students who received fellowships, they've graduated, they've gone on, they work with clients on an ongoing basis. They continue that legacy that Mark began. Every year, they're working with excellent. We saw somebody who was 70, 80 caseload in the public schools one place. Those 70, 80 kids are being treated by probably somebody from this program in hospitals and rehab centers and clinics. And then those clients who receive scholarships, their families couldn't afford even the fairly small fees that we have for clinics here, for clinic here. They were funded with scholarships from Scottish Rite. Those people left this program hopefully improved and ready to carry on with what they needed to do after they left the clinic here. So that's all part of the legacy. And it's, again, I come back to this, the unselfishness of this. All he wanted to do was that, to provide service, not to be recognized for that. And we are so pleased to be able to do that today, honored that you all are here to celebrate with us, long overdue, and we just are so grateful for what he did. Do you have any questions that occur to you about this whole process, what he did, and how he got involved in? And Joe knows a lot of the mysterious aspects of that, what they did. Joe had an office in the other building, so he was sort of our spy. And so he and Mark would have these conversations, and he'll tell you more about how they came about. But any questions about the program or what we do and how Mark contributed?
I've been flipping through slides as you've said some of those things, just to give a flavor.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
In the
That's
room
good.
right now are a number of students who were recipients. They're called fellowships, but they are graduate student scholarships, $6,000 scholarships. I think 2 of the girls this year received $3,000 scholarships because I wanted to spread the wealth around a little bit. But how many of you are here in the room? You want to at least raise your hand, and you can see that the young ladies here. And we've given you a flavor of some of the therapy services that have gone on. These are examples of the summer programs, although Shyla has been doing this throughout the year as well. But Scottish Rite gives us $15,000 a summer. That allows us to operate the program, get supplies, if we need part-time assistance. Books, the children here use a lot of books. They don't have books in their homes necessarily, and all that is funded through Scottish Rite, so that's great. And of course, the $100,000 that they contributed to the building. We've been in the building for 21 years now already. It's getting old.
Gosh. I thought the other thing about the fellowships too is that that allowed us to compete for, I'm sure these were the most brilliant of their graduating
Absolutely.
classes somewhere, and allows us to attract, we've always had strong students. Their success on the national exam in speech pathology is still over 99%, something like that, which is incredible. The evaluations by employers of our students for all that time I was there, continuing through Stacy's time here, those employers have just exceptional kinds of evaluations for our students. So all that business, and we can see that thread always back to what Mark did and what Mark started for us.
So, Joe, do you want to add some personal comments?
Not all of us. Not everything. I'll be selective.
Dr. Joe Sieber.
Thank you. The last time I stood up here to address any group, I think was probably a class I was teaching in here. Do you still have classes in here?
Occasionally.
Occasionally,
Yep.
so it's like this is a walk down memory lane. But Nick and Stacy have really done a great job of summarizing the Mark's contributions and the scope and breadth of the program. But I'd probably just like to take a few minutes and give you an idea of the really early days and how this all started. And I'll tell a little story that'll make our development officer cringe probably. we didn't have a development officer back in those days, so Nick knows what I'm talking about. That's one little secret.
We're not talking about that.
But
You
I
could get fired, is that what you're saying?
yeah, you can't get fired retroactively, it's too late. Can't go to jail, the statute of limitations has passed. But I came to ODU in '85, I was up at JMU, and I come down here, and actually I'm from Norfolk, so it was great to come back to home, so to speak. But they didn't want my kind to have an office in the Child Study Center, so they made me go next door to the education building. So while the hearing clinic was here, I was actually housed one of the small offices next door. And just so happened that I was about, have many of you been over there? It's like a prison, and it's like you're walking the corridors and they're, little tiny offices, and Denny knows. And so I was in one of those small offices with no windows, and Mark was across the hall, maybe down 1 or 2 doors, and he had a window. So I used to go over and look out the window of his office. And, we got to talking, and we got along real well, and became friends. But then he told me that he was a member of the Scottish Rite, and I didn't know anything about the Scottish Rite, and that they gave fellowships to students at JMU in speech language pathology, and to UVA in, I think it was some kind of governmental affairs or something like that. It was not our field. And so he said, but we don't do this, you don't do this now, and actually I was instrumental in changing this, but back in the old days, the scholarships were a competitive interview process, and so let's say there was 5 scholarships available for JMU, they had like 10 students they put forward to go to the interviews, and so we would sit there, Mark initially by himself would sit there and interview these students, then have to make a decision who out of the 10, I'm making the numbers up, but who out of the 10 would get the fellowship. And he said, I don't know anything about speech pathology. He said, would you mind coming along with me on some of these interviews? He used to go to, sometimes to Charlottesville, the students from JMU would come over there, sometimes to Williamsburg. Do you remember, Joanne? We went to Williamsburg a lot, right? And Richmond sometimes?
I don't know about Richmond.
Yeah, but I know Williamsburg was common, and it seems to me we went to Charlottesville. And so I helped him with that for a couple of years, and of course we would ride up together and talk about things and everything. And then I guess after that, that was probably, so we got our first one in what, 88, 89?
89.
89. So that was probably 86 maybe, shortly after I got here. So we were riding back one day in the car, and Mark said, well, how come ODU doesn't, I wonder why ODU doesn't get any of these fellowships. We have a speech pathology program. And I said, I don't know. He said, well, I'll look into it. And so Mark looked into it, and next thing I knew, we had our first fellowship. And then it grew from there. I continued to help him interview, and then we eventually changed the interview process, or changed the process so that the interview was more of an information. The students had been selected, the recipients, and the interviews were more informational, like, here's what the Scottish Rite is, and here's what your responsibilities are, and so forth. So that all changed. But that's how it started. And so first we got 1, and then we got 2 and 3, and then I got involved heavily. I was the liaison between the program and the Scottish Rite, so I went to a lot of meetings, and I eventually, in the 90s, when the Tidewater Scottish Rite, you don't have a slide about that. Don't worry about it.
So.
I don't think so. But the Norfolk Scottish Rite Foundation was mentioned on there. That was the original one locally here. But then, and Mark was a member that was called the Norfolk Valley, so that was his foundation, basically, his home base, so to speak. And so as things grew, and the other valleys or districts for Scotland, the Newport News and Portsmouth became involved, the powers to be in Scottish Rite decided we should have a Tidewater Scottish Rite Speech and Language Foundation, which would encompass Norfolk, Newport News, and Portsmouth. Well, that expanded the breadth and scope of their involvement, and we used to have a lot of meetings here. Some of you, Stacy remembers, and Nick, of course, and Charlie, I'm sure you were around some of those, weren't you? You remember? Okay. But in any case, I actually was appointed president of the Tidewater Scottish Rite Foundation, and I held that role as we were a 501, it still is a 501c3 nonprofit, and so I did that for 7 or 8, 9 years, I think, and then turned it over to somebody else, but that's still a thriving organization, and Dr. Raymer deals with them. So anyway, it grew from a very small start. Mark said, let's get a fellowship, and it has mushroomed into all you've heard about from Stacy and Nick. So it's quite an accomplishment. Did Mark ever say much about it, Joanne? As far as, did he?
We lost touch with the Scottish Rite and ODU.
Yeah.
So he really did not realize it was so successful.
Yeah, because you all moved to Florida. What year did Mark retire? I've lost track of time.
It was 65. What year would that be? I don't know. A long time ago.
Back in the 90s, wasn't it?
90s.
Yes, it was in the
Those were
90s.
the 90s, yeah, because it was, because then you went to Florida a lot, then eventually moved to Florida, and I lost contact with you, so.
Yeah.
In any case, but, so anyway, you kind of get the idea of the beginnings and Mark's kind of, if it hadn't been for Mark, none of this would have happened, I don't think. And I was just fortunate enough to be over there and got to know him, and because of the situation, this all developed. So it was a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be thankful for. The little story I was going to tell, you've heard mention of the $100,000 that the Scottish Rite donated to this building. Raising $1 million, the idea to build this building was to raise $1 million privately and then leverage the state for the rest of it. And there's not many buildings on campus that do that. I mean, we're one of the, this is, you probably know, Carrie, do you all know? There's not many buildings on campus that have.
I think the only ones,
There's
yeah, I
more-
don't think there are because.
There's more now, like the art center,
Athletic.
the stuff, that
That's
they're
true.
non-academic, like.
But all the academic buildings are all state or
State,
federal.
yeah. And so anyway, it was very unique, and it was hard to raise $1 million back in the 90s, that was a lot of money. And so the funding was kind of languishing and the fundraising process, and when the Scottish Rite gave $100,000, it kind of turned the corner because people realized, I can't remember what that took it up to, Lions had done $300,000, we were getting close to $500,000, I think. But anyway, that kind of turned the corner and things took off, and then this building became a reality. But it was interesting, the $100,000 didn't come all at once. We had to get contributions to get that amount, and back in those days there was no development officer, and Old Dominion had a sort of a reputation for sometimes holding on to your money, and Nick will smile about that one because he knows only too well. And so Mark and I decided, well, we'll come up with a little idea that we'll take care of this $100,000 ourselves. So we went down to ODU Credit Union down the street, and we opened up an account, and I can't remember whose name we used, but some name. I can't remember. What do you remember, Nick?
I had nothing to do with it.
And so it's all legit. I mean, we had good intentions, and today, of course, you couldn't do it, with all the banking. But we opened up an account down there, and every time we got a contribution, we would squirrel the way down there until we had $100,000. So we got our 100, and that took a few years. So we had this little account going down there, and it was all above board as far as we were concerned, and all the money went to,
The rumors about Joe and I getting Mercedes-Benz. Absolutely not.
And so once we got the $100,000, we did close the account, and we presented the check to ODU, and that was that. But it was a very handy, although, and at the time, the most expeditious way to do it. But today, of course, you couldn't do that. It wouldn't be favored, would it?
I would just have to walk in the other room.
So you didn't hear any of that. But in any case, I want to thank you all again for coming today, and again to honor Mark, and his legacy lives on here forever. So it's a real pleasure to have been involved, to know him, and to have been involved with all this. Does anybody have any questions out there?
Joanne, would you like to come up? So then, and then we'll present you.
I'm still eating lunch.
And I know there's a lot of pieces of chair and floor. So we've prepared this plaque to in memory of Dr. Mark Fravel, 1932 to 2017, in recognition for his vision and dedication to the ODU Scottish Rite Childhood Speech and Language Center since 1989, since 1989. So we'll put this up on the wall next to the big Scottish Rite plaque, and we thank you. So
Oh, thank you.
do you
I'll
want
show
to
it
take
to
a
you.
picture with us?
Yes.
And then, of course, we brought you some flowers to make sure you can
Oh,
take
they're
the whole
gorgeous.
thing home.
Okay, thank you.
The whole thing is for you.